think I talked about a little of this last week, but I want to talk a little more. It was a astrological reading that I had. I know I'm going through a very strange period for me, unlike anything I've ever been in. And I reached out to a friend who's an astrologer, and her analysis of it was that I am entering, actually have been entering for a while, a period of Neptune conjunct with Sun. There's a lot more going on beyond that, and I'm not an expert in the field, but it's really about the end of ego, the end of the journey of a separate being. It's the last washing out. For me, it's a 2-year journey. Interestingly, it ends or comes to a kind of end around the end of 2020, pretty much in a way coinciding with the election, which is interesting. But there is a huge burning out, and I was alerted to the fact that it's not fun. And I will tell you from my own internal experience, and you know, those of you listening to the talks of the last few months, that there's a lot of weighty material starting to emerge, dealing with the experience of the dissolution of the things that hold you or your life or your form or your understanding or your sense of self together. There arrives a place of no ground. It's like the ship you were sailing on blew up, and you've been holding on to the last 3 boards that are still floating, and they are withering away. And there's nothing. And the advice I was given by still another friend who's an astrologer is, you can float or you can flail. Mostly, you are lying in the middle of a vast ocean. You are totally alone. There is no sense of port of arrival. There's no sense of land. There's no sense of anything. No sense of destination. You are just floating. And you can just lie there and float, or you can panic and flail. Well, I definitely have tried panic and flailing, and they are non-productive. They have no value whatsoever. It just creates a kind of dissonance and disturbance and unhappiness that is very powerful. And nothing seems to care, really, about that, other than one's own individual mind. So there's a choice to be made of either stop flailing and float, or give in to the flailing and struggle with life as it goes through its, in this situation, very dramatic deconstruction. I've also been instructed, in a sense, both by an astrologer but also by my psyche, if you will, that I bought into this journey a long time ago. This journey of what you might call liberation, spiritual unfolding, redemption, dissolution, is a path that we're all on, everyone. I, however, somehow in this lifetime decided to stare it in the face, to embrace it, to take it on, to find what this journey was for. Why life? Why come into this spectacular space? Why try to build an existence in this remarkable world, knowing, for those of us who have been willing to know, that it is a very temporary passage? That everything you create and build and arrive at and achieve and fall in love with and embrace and take to be yours will be taken away. Most of us accept, without actually making a conscious acceptance, but we accept that the final exit is just death. And that will be the end of it. And so eat, drink, and be merry until that occurs. And there's an argument to be made for that, and I probably would have embraced that if I had been able to. But something in me early on was initiated into an awareness that nothing that we look at is what it appears to be. The world is not what it seems to be. This collection of experience, of individual journey, of transformative adventure is something that is part gift and part test. There are many millions of people who say there are reasons for this, that it has purpose, it has directionality, it has a goal. Many religions embrace behaviors that will allow you to arrive at that final moment and have lived a quote unquote good life, and you will therefore be absorbed in some kind of heavenly space. There are religions that tell you if you behave badly, there are alternatives to that heavenly space, and that there are consequences to how you live. Many of our worldly pursuits are self-satisfying, ego-driven. Give me more. They have a quality of greed, a quality of expansiveness, a quality of me over you. Others come into this world as selfless servers. They go out to be of help to others. But so many of those journeys have an end point that's called death. And somehow there will be a resolution when that occurs. You arrive at that point and it will be, okay, now I'm dying. Everything along the journey to that moment obscures how absolutely terrified you are of that truth. The end journey is the dissolution of all things that you know and care about. When you lose something at home, a favorite book, you can't find it. When your dog dies, when something gives you an intimation of mortality, what happens for so many people is a glimmer of the fear of loss, what it could possibly feel like. And yet, knowing full well at some point it will all be lost, you still go along pretending that that's not true. And you somehow think, kind of like going to bed at night, you'll just lie down at the end and you'll just go into oblivion and you won't wake up and it won't matter. Well, there may be truth to that. We don't know. But my own experience is that there is no beginning, there is no end, there is eternal presence. It forms into solid content, and it dissolves back into nothingness over and over. We come and we go. We are born and we die. And that there is a journey that goes on forever. I don't know the truth of that. I will tell you the Tibetan Buddhists, that's their journey. They really believe that we have one life after another, after another, after another, and that you would think after a while we would get better at it, and in a way they think you can. You can get better at this infinite journey. You can begin to realize, oh, this again. You begin to realize how much the acquisition of stuff, of position, of power, of wealth, has no bearing on the reality of the fact that ultimately nothing you have gained will be held. Somewhere along the way, people wake up to that fact. And they begin this process of letting go. The thing about letting go doesn't mean that you can't have. It means that you don't get attached to what you have. Rudy had this great line, you can't let go of what you haven't had. So having is actually part of the human experience. Have love, have a nice house, have a good job, have people you love, but know every step of the way that this is only for the moment. You have it for the moment. Love it deeply in the moment, because when it goes, every part of you that's holding on to it will experience enormous disturbance and sadness and grief. The spiritual journey is a practice. It's a practice of learning how to let go, to have without owning, to experience without fearing, to trust the extraordinary opening of every moment that's in front of you. Trust it. Float. Learn to float. The flailing part is a lack of trust, it's a lack of faith, it's a lack of belief, it's a lack of knowing. And for most people, the closest we get to non-flailing is what we call faith. A belief in something we are told by others. It will all end up well in the end, you'll go to heaven if you're a good person, do the right thing and it will all come together. Whatever the things are that you have faith in are very important for the survival of most people in the world. Usually you can get through life without having that faith tested too dramatically. But occasionally it is tested. Occasionally you experience great loss way too soon. Failure way too soon. Disappointment. All of these things not working properly. And you start to question everything and you begin to flail. You don't believe in anything. You don't know what to believe. Honestly, that's the beginning of your spiritual journey. That's when it starts to express its truth. Because most belief is in something someone else told you. Most belief is in a hope, or in a prayer, or a belief, or some kind of doctrine that promises some future. But it's all something presented from the outside in. The only real sustaining belief is what you know. The only way to know is to let go of everybody else's teaching, including mine. To let go of everything anybody has taught you and sit still and be and see what is. You will discover that all of the teachings that you've heard since kindergarten are all coming at you in your mind and are stored up there to try to be analytical about this experience of being, and they get in the way. They are part of the flailing. You have to let go of what you think and what you know and what you believe and what you hope for, all of that. And you will never realize until you get to this point what an amazingly difficult thing it is to let go of what seems like fundamental beliefs that you carry. You can only let go of these fundamental beliefs by letting go. It leaves you floating, not knowing, having no clue to anything. But as you let go of your mind and you let go of its trying to interpret and hold on to narratives and stories that define you and explain the world, as you let go of all of that, what you have in silence, and what we talk about in this class, is an entryway into something within you that is not only buoyant, but the source of floating itself. It is your own vast being that transcends the oceanic space you're floating in, that allows you to experience this enormity of being and to realize that that enormity of being encompasses you. And it encompasses you in something that can best be defined by the word love. You will feel, as you lie there, that you are floating in a bed of love. And if you let go of the noise of your brain, the noise of your mind, the noise of trying to get other people's clarity to give you a direction, and you look to your own navigational truth, you will find within your own heart, if you will, within your own being, is all you need to carry you. But you have no idea, I will put it more clearly, I had no idea how much needed to be let go of to truly enter that space. I've definitely visited, lived in, immersed myself in, and have been supported by this inner space. But it was also with the understanding that I could go back out into the world and have my children and my wife and ice cream cones and go to movies and have a life and all of that stuff. But when they start to take that away, then the real journey of being yourself, of entering into the still-pointed vastness of being, occurs. And at that moment, all this stuff that was your identity, that was your safety, that allowed you to hold on to the world and life, as all that starts to really go away, you see it differently. You see it as a kind of dreamlike projection of being. You see how you have created these forms called husband, wife, child, tree, sky, sun, moon, light. You've created all of that as a way of giving form to this formless thing you feel inside, and you no longer see it as a threat. You no longer see it as a outer reality. You see it as part of a state of being that is an endless, transformative flux that comes and goes just like your breath. And if you sit back and you float in the middle of all of this, you will have an experience of being that transcends the idea that life is real and solid and permanent. You will begin to feel it is impermanent. It is a bardo-like, dreamlike state. It arises for your pleasure, perhaps, for your knowledge, for your sense of navigation through time and space. It creates a form that has identity, and it has three-dimensional validity. It's a very powerful space, and we fall in love with it the minute we see it. The minute Earth arises, the minute Mother's milk arrives, the minute we start to feel gravity, the minute we start to see starlight and sun and moon and stars and trees and walking, and all of these things start to happen, we completely grab it. And we love its reality, we love its density, we love its power and its purposefulness and its directiveness and its goodness. And then we even love the fact that it presents obstacles and dark forces, and it has such drama to it. And we buy into this thing, and we forget that we are floating in infinite, eternal space. And then we feel, in that forgetfulness, the terror of not knowing who we are, where we're from, where we're headed, what this is about. It becomes about all the externals, and we realize that everything external has limited duration. The spiritual journey is the balancing point. If you can go in and find yourself and float into the stillness of space and being, even while all the world is conducting itself around you and within you and through you and for you and without you, as long as you can touch and know and be part of this vastness and float simultaneously, you will have achieved this remarkable balance, the state of knowing that you are everything and nothing, that there's nothing to hold on to, there's nothing to want, there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to let go of. It's all moving, and you are at a point of stillness that has no duration. It just is. It is a permanent isness. Everything that tries to define it and grasp it and teach you about it falls away. All you're going to know is, aha, aso. That's the only place we arrive at. Ha. I will tell you, having thought that I had arrived at that some 10 years ago, that the journey continues, and that what's happening now is more intense than anything that's ever happened in my life. And I've had a very interesting, dynamic life, but this is a challenge. It is a very hard challenge, and it is not a hard challenge. Here's the hard part. When you start to want to believe in solidity and matter and the comfort of your loved ones and your purpose in the world and the fact that anything means anything, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. At that moment, I had it walking through Whole Foods yesterday, buying food for today, and the world was disintegrating. And I'm in Whole Foods, and the world's disintegrating. Nothing makes sense. Nothing. Nothing is holding together. And a part of me started to go, the flailing started to happen, because if Whole Foods isn't real, what's real? And that was like the bizarreness. Nothing had content for me. And then I just said, you can flail or you can float. So I decided to float. And I floated through the aisles. Stuff we needed to find appeared immediately, and I went to the stuff we needed to get. Checkout was easy, friendly, nice people. The drive down the streets of Northridge, California was, there were some police cars blocking streets, and we went to other streets, and all of this stuff was just happening, and it was like, okay. It was really sweet. It was just floating, floating, floating. I did not have to understand anything. And then Blanche and I went on our exercise machines, which we often do after dinner, and then decided to watch a movie. We're trying to get through all the Academy movies that I have to vote on. And one of the last ones is this movie called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, I guess. And I don't mean to try to sell movies here, but it's one of the most profound movies I've seen this year and maybe in many years. And it was exactly about what I'm going through. It was taking all of the narratives and all the happy endings and all of the predictabilities and everything we know to be true and all of the myths of our lives, and it was blowing one up after another, after another, after another. And a part of me sat there and said, how do they know this? And another part says it doesn't matter. Another part just went, thank you. Everything that I love is going to go away. Everything I hate is going to go away. Life is going to go away. And I'm going to float. I am going to float. And I'm going to go through whatever I have to go through in the next 2 years to go through this float, this floating. And then I really have the sense that once the practice of floating over flailing is complete, which is what's supposed to happen in this 2-year trajectory, I will have other lessons to teach you. If you're still around and if I still want to teach. But I will tell you right now, the lesson is it's better to float than flail. Life's going to come apart at the seams for all of us. It's already in play. There's a lot going on in our lives that is being torn apart. Politically, environmentally, globally, things are fracturing. Things are falling apart. Either we find a capacity for floating in the midst of all of this, or we join in the great public flailing that will occur. This is not a simple choice, it's a choice that defines you as a being. How are you going to react to a world that is being dismembered? And even if it doesn't happen to the world in the way I'm describing, it will happen to you, because you are going to be dismembered, you are going to be destroyed, and yet, if you can trust what I'm saying, and I'm telling you don't trust me at all, discover this for yourself, the journey inside will teach you, I believe, how to float in the midst of this inevitable, transformative, disintegrative, dissolving reality that will leave you where you have always been, who you have always been, what you have always been, at the center and the core of being itself. And that won't go anywhere. This is your ride. My job is singularly to tell you you have a ride ahead of you. This is how I am dealing with my ride. If anything I'm saying has any value to you, use it. If it has no value to you, go to somewhere where there is value. But one way or another, if you're going to get it from somebody else, it's not going to hold water. Whatever truth you find is best found in your own inner space. And I would just offer you the fact that going inside, if you can get past the fear of that, is the refuge, salvation, nourishment, generator, navigator that you need. I really promise you, go deep inside and you will find how to float. The end. Any comments, criticisms, suggestions? I think what I'm getting at is this is a hard ride, guys. Harder than you thought. People wanting spiritual bypass will not have that here. People who come to these talks or who come to these classes are going to be on a ride that I'm going through, which is it will not leave you as the person you came in as. If you're willing to be somebody more than the person you came in or less than, hang around. And if you're not, find the thing that supports your desire or your need. But I really, I'm grateful to those of you who have the will and the courage to hear these words and then take charge. Take charge of your journey. It's not my journey, it's your journey. My journey is what I'm telling you about. Your journey you can tell me about or tell others. But if you really get it right, reporting honestly and truthfully about your journey to others is about as good a gift as you can give anybody in the world. Because nobody knows what's going on and everybody's flailing. And if anybody around you has had moments of clarity and floating and trust and joy and beauty, try to figure out what you can do to have that as well. Okay, I'm going to repeat myself, so I'm going to stop. Thank you. We'll be back in a month. 2 days ago was Rudy's birthday, would have been his 91st. We bought a princess cake, which Rudy always loved. It's a Norwegian cake with marzipan topping. And we're going to serve it downstairs. And one of the things I often do is we'll go down and put a candle in, and before we have brunch, we'll just sing happy birthday to Rudy, cut the cake, and you're all welcome to a slice. It's really sweet and it's really good, and it's enough reason to be born in the first place, just to have a princess cake. So thank you guys for coming, and see you downstairs.